After reading Girls of Atomic City by Denise Kiernan, we took our reading experience to the next level by creating a project analyzing workers' rights and the secrecy involved. Not only did we want to analyze this, but we also wanted to compare the girls working on the Manhattan Project to current workers of Oak Ridge.
I'm Colleen Black from Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and I was one of the girls in the book and also in the Manhattan Project.
We visited Colleen at Greenfield Senior Living, where we interviewed her, hearing the inspiring perspective of a woman who experienced firsthand a life during the Manhattan Project.
My job was a leak detector operator. I could go in the cafeteria, the restroom, in my job. And I didn't want to go anywhere. I would see people passing and going, but I knew I had a job to do. And they would probably be the same way if I asked them. They wouldn't have told me. Maybe they'd have reported me. Everywhere you looked, there were signs. What you do here, what you see here, when you leave here, let it stay here. I mean, everything was a slip of the lip could sink a ship. I mean, all those billboards were there to remind you, don't talk.
While at Oak Ridge, Manhattan Project workers were oblivious to the purpose of their jobs, up until President Truman's speech announced that the atomic bomb had been dropped on Hiroshima.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. The Japanese began the war from the air at Pearl Harbor. They have been repaid many-fold, and the end is not yet. With this bomb, we have now added a new and revolutionary increase in destruction to supplement the growing power of our armed forces. In their present form, these bombs are now in production, and even more powerful forms are in development. It is an atomic bomb. It is a harnessing of the basic power of the universe. The force from which the sun draws its power has been loosed against those who brought war to the Far East. We have spent more than $2 billion on the greatest scientific gamble in history, and we have won. But the greatest marvel is not the size of the enterprise, its secrecy, or its cost, but the achievement of scientific brains in making it work.
First, the very first, the bomb dropped, and it was exciting to think that the war will be over. The war will be over soon, and we were really excited about it. And everybody rushed out to buy paper, and newspapers were 5 cents each. But when you rushed out to get the paper that day, they were $1 a piece. But we wanted to read all about it, and we were excited until we went to the movie and we saw the newsreels of the devastation, and you just couldn't believe that you had done a part of it. Well, I didn't make the bomb. I was just doing the pipe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we mixed emotions, and still, and we still don't want the bomb to happen again. And but right after the war, they said, this is going to be research and development we're going into.
And it did.
And it did, yes, and to medicine and everything. So again, you're torn.
Yeah.
And we were glad the war was over. I mean, they did say what we were making. We hadn't made the bomb, and we tried. But it was still, the process was still a secret. Mm-hmm. So I stayed on working. I got married, and I had children, so I stayed at home, and I wasn't involved in the plans. But my husband was in the Army, and he was discharged, not the same year the war was over in 45. He was discharged in 46, but he went to work for the AEC, mm-hmm. and so he decided to stay here too. So we thought it was a good place, but the plant secrecy was still there, and we didn't open the gates to the city until 1949. So as you can see, it was still secret. And then after the gates were open, they still had gates to the plants, you still couldn't get in. Well, today you can.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know about radiation. See, that wasn't one of my words then. So no, I mean, I don't know. Then later, you know, and I heard all the people talking about it, but I didn't think so.
Mm-hmm. So you've never seen a doctor
Oh,
concerned
I've
it?
been to the doctor, yeah.
Okay.
Because, you know, they come out with all this stuff you think you have, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
After listening to a voice of the past, we moved to the present status of Oak Ridge, interviewing current employee Kevin Rasch.
I am Kevin Rasch, the father of Alyssa Rasch, and I work in Oak Ridge at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. I'm a software engineer. Classified information, there's really two rules to who can know it. You have to have a security clearance, and you have to have a need to know. So if I have knowledge of classified information, that's something I can't discuss at home because no one at home has either of those two things, and there would only be limited people at work that I could discuss that with. Most of ORNL is unclassified space, so if classified information is going to be discussed, you have to go into an area that's cleared for discussion of classified information. So if you're sitting in a space like that, at that point, yes, you would assume that what you're discussing is classified and needs to be treated as classified information. But when I'm sitting in my office, then, you know, nothing that crosses my desk or conversations that I have, none of that, it would include classified information. There's some rules about, in order to get to the Oak Ridge National Lab, you travel on a road that has guard posts on both sides. So you're essentially passing through a checkpoint, and there's some pretty common sense rules about what can't go past those checkpoints. No explosives, firearms, alcohol. I mean, basic stuff that probably any employer doesn't want you carrying into work. And I think they've made a lot of improvements, and I'm talking about physical safety. So, you know, they keep track of, you know, how many hours has work been done without a serious injury, and they have programs to, when something does go wrong and someone's injured, they look into it and find out all the details of what went wrong, why it went wrong, what could have been done differently to avoid it, and they put together what they call, you know, lessons learned from that, and they make sure they disseminate that information.
We found from our surveys that workers in leadership positions less often felt that information was kept from them. In addition, those in leadership positions were less often asked not to divulge information. They were, however, more often asked to report on others who divulged information. Looking at 4 chosen careers, we found that legal and research jobs most dealt with secrecy. This is because workers in those fields most often reported that they felt like information was kept from them and were more often asked not to divulge information. While the safety has majorly improved, a focus on secrecy still remains. An example that we found from Reuters is that President Obama mandates a program called Insider Threats, requesting workers report those who leak secret information. This is not an entirely new concept. During the Manhattan Project, spies were recruited to report on those who said too much about their job at Oak Ridge. In our interview with Helen Jernigan, one of the newspaper editors at Oak Ridge during the Manhattan Project, she said, "I never even knew about this until I read Denise's book. That's where I learned that this was taking place, and I was surprised." While secrecy remains important in the fields of law, medicine, research, and education, safety and protecting workers has become the major focus. Nearly every respondent to our survey said they were comfortable at work, agreed with their workplace's level of security, and did not feel like security violated their personal rights as a worker. Please visit our website to access this documentary, our pamphlet, and the charts from our survey. The website is manhattanproject-modernday.org. www.webstarts.com.